Again, thanks for joining us here on the Midday View on eNCA. Now, nearly 10,000 ANC ward councillors, or hopefuls, let's say, have taken a pledge to end corruption as part of the party's campaign to do better and be better. The President, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, promised that corruption will be rooted out. The party has been criticized for its poor service delivery. Will this campaign help them win back votes? Well, for more on this, I'm joined by political analyst Tessa Dooms this hour. Tessa, good afternoon. It's very good to talk to you ahead of these elections. What made me want to hear your views today is about this pledge. If I may start there with the president of the ruling party talking to the 9,400 odd council candidates, let's call them that, for the 1st November elections, and making them take a pledge against corruption and saying we need to do better and be better. But some of the words that I read and I heard and I saw is that ANC has been saying this for quite some time. I mean, do you think the voter will trust that this time things might be different?
Thank you, Dan. So I think what the ANC have tried to do in this election cycle is rely on their national leadership and their national brand to be the thing that carries them through this election. I think there is a recognition that there's a broader issue about trust in the ANC's brand and in the ANC's ability to deliver, and particularly around the issues of corruption. But of course, at local government level, people are not only experiencing it as something that's far removed from them, but they're experiencing the consequences of that in terms of poor service delivery and poor management of resources and just incompetence in many cases. And so the ANC is trying to draw on particularly the goodwill that it believes Cyril Ramaphosa as its president has, and thinking back to the 2019 elections where you did see that on a balance of things, there was a lot more trust put into the national vote, probably because of the brand of Cyril Ramaphosa, than in provincial votes. And so it's a good tactic in trying to put forward both the president and the ANC brand. But given the fact that the ANC has not resolved and has not shown its ability to internally hold itself accountable and hold people who are charged with corruption accountable, I don't know that that will work, because the trust might be there in the individual, but the trust is not necessarily there in the organization. And when we're talking about 10,000 ward candidates, can the ANC actually do the job of reining that in? I think many would question that.
Yeah, because this good governance pledge, the words might be sounding great: no bribes, no fraud, no nepotism, no patronage, all those buzzwords. But I guess the proof is going to be in the eating. My concern as well is making a pledge of a party whose image, as you said, and the brand has been battered by so much of challenges, when services on the ground are not being delivered. I mean, local government is really about services, not about politicking.
Certainly, and I think not only the ANC, but I think many political parties have missed out on this in this election, on really focusing on practical strategies for those local communities and for delivering services in those local communities, rather than focusing on trying to manage their brand and their brand identity. I think that part of the concern is whether or not there are good candidates being put forward, and we know that within the ANC there have been questions about whether some of the candidates that were brought forward by the branches are actually the ones that have succeeded to get onto the list. We know that people also don't really trust that they can rely on the ANC to hold those people accountable if they fail. So again, it comes down to whether or not the ANC can, and any political party, can deliver on promises on the ground, and whether parties can be trusted to not just talk about their internal factions or do things based on what's right for their internal factions, but will do what's right for the community. I think the ANC, more than any other party in this country, has the kind of resources and the kind of reach to be in every ward in this country, to have a local focus. They have branches in every ward. And so you would expect them to be leveraging the strength of their branches, the strength of their footprints in communities. But it seems that that has been lost in a broader national conversation about where the party is at, rather than what the party can deliver because of the way in which it interacts with communities.
Yeah, and that internal fighting is not helping it, because we know there have been so many disputes over some of those lists of the, excuse me, Tessa, of the of the councillors. Now, we've got 12 days to go, Tessa, before the local government elections under a pandemic that we've never experienced, all of us, before. Very interesting dynamics that are playing out here. There's not a lot left. I mean, I've just crossed live to a number of our reporters earlier. I don't know if you saw that, different parts of the country. Justin Tata is in Matatiele in the Eastern Cape. Spoke to residents there. They don't even know the councillors who are standing for elections in Matatiele. That's a rural town, except they see them on the posters. So there's already that kind of a dissonance between residents of a small town like that and who wants to represent their and look after their service interests. I mean, it's odd.
It's very odd. And again, it's this idea that parties particularly think that they can leverage their brand and they can leverage the history of their party, they can leverage the national popularity of their leaders, rather than leveraging community support and actually having communities that can trust the candidates that they put forward. We know that local government elections, different from national and provincial elections, is very much about the candidate. It's very much about whether that candidate understands the local setting, can be relied on, and importantly, something that we must enforce more in South African politics is the ability to hold somebody accountable. I was having a conversation a few days ago with somebody who said, you know, you think that somebody who stands as a ward councillor is probably very brave because, you know, they run the risk of this community actually confronting them, perhaps, you know, threatening them with violence or many other things if they don't deliver. And that's the negative version of the story. But the positive version is that we do need communities that can engage those candidates, that can engage the people who represent them. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to march to Lutulia House to make sure that your roads are fixed or that your sewage is working. You need to be able to engage with the representative that you send to your municipality that's going to be there in the chambers in your city, arguing on your behalf, making sure things happen. And if you cannot hold that person accountable, if you do not know who they are, if you do not trust them, then the system is not doing what it's supposed to do. And it is again about making sure politicians and political parties win while communities suffer.
Thank you very much for your insights. As usual, that's Tessa Dooms, political analyst, as we look ahead at the November the 1st local government elections.